London, on a cold early winter evening, the golden lights from towering buildings reflected down onto the bustling crowds on the streets. Inside the Grand Hall of the Grand Mayfair Hotel, where the launch event for Lawson Innovations' groundbreaking medical product was taking place, an atmosphere of luxury and excitement filled every corner. On stage stood Derek Lawson, a powerful figure, delivering his speech with calm confidence. At 38, he had achieved remarkable success, building a leading medical technology empire from scratch and turning it into a global symbol of innovation. With his commanding height, dark hair streaked with silver, and sharp eyes, Derek was the epitome of the modern business magnate. However, behind his perfect exterior lay a profound loneliness. Since childhood, Derek had battled a rare genetic condition that rendered him incapable of having children. Failed treatments, broken marriages, and the fading dream of a small, loving family had become a distant reality. He devoted all his time and energy to his career, transforming Lawson Innovations into a pioneering force in the medical field. Yet no matter how brilliant his achievements, he still felt an emptiness in the grandeur of his luxurious surroundings. Amid the dazzling crowd of the event, Hannah Cole, an investigative journalist from New York, quietly observed from a distance. With her wavy brown hair and sharp blue eyes, Hannah possessed both captivating beauty and a formidable intellect. Her trip to London was not merely to report on Lawson Innovations' latest development, but to delve deeper into the secrets hidden behind the walls of this medical tech empire. As a journalist specializing in healthcare and technology investigations, Hannah was no stranger to corporate maneuvers and hidden agendas. She knew that a corporation as large as Lawson Innovations couldn't be without its secrets. However, as she watched Derek on stage, she saw something beyond the polished exterior, an intensity in his gaze, a hint of vulnerability that only those who had experienced loss could recognize. The event proceeded smoothly until the unexpected arrival of Nathan Blackwood, the chairman of rival corporation Biogen Tech, disrupted the atmosphere. Nathan was a man driven by ambition, with a long history of hostile takeovers and questionable tactics. His cold smile immediately put Derek on high alert. They had clashed many times in the business world, and Derek knew that Nathan's presence at this event was no coincidence. Hannah happened to witness a tense conversation between Derek and Nathan as she passed by the VIP area. Nathan slyly hinted at Lawson Innovations, facing the threat of losing controlling shares to anonymous investors. Though Derek maintained his composure, there was a flicker of anger and determination in his eyes. He wouldn't let it happen. After the event, Derek decided to leave earlier than planned to avoid the tiresome small talk. Meanwhile, Hannah found herself crossing paths with him at the hotel bar. What started as witty banter soon turned into a deeper conversation about life, dreams, and the truths neither of them had dared to admit. For a rare moment, Derek felt as though he could remove the mask of a successful businessman and simply be a man searching for something more. Hannah, too, hadn't expected to find such a strange connection with Derek in a foreign city, a man who seemingly had everything but lacked the one thing that truly mattered: genuine love. As the city lights reflected through the wine glass in her hand, emotions ran high, and Derek and Hannah were drawn to each other in an intense whirlwind, unaware that this night would change their lives forever. Welcome to today's story. Let us know in the comments which city you're listening from. You might find someone from the same place tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. 3 months later, Hannah stood in front of the clinic in New York, her heart pounding as she stared at the ultrasound results. The image of 3 fetuses clearly displayed on the screen left her stunned. "How is this possible?" she muttered, recalling what Derek had once told her about his inability to have children. The initial shock quickly gave way to anxiety. Derek had a right to know, but would he believe it? With fear and countless unanswered questions, she returned to London. However, when she finally faced Derek again, she realized he was already battling a different crisis. Biogen Tech was quietly acquiring shares of Lawson Innovations through anonymous investment funds. Derek was on the brink of losing control over the company he had built from the ground up. Derek received Hannah's news with a mix of skepticism and hope. His instincts urged him to believe in this miracle, but his rational mind struggled to accept it. Hannah, on the other hand, knew that it wasn't just the 3 babies who needed a father. She also needed a solid partner to face the challenges ahead. 3 months had passed since that fateful night. Life in New York had continued for Hannah Cole as if nothing had happened. Articles, investigations, and packed interview schedules left her with little time to think about anything else. Or at least that's what she had convinced herself. She and Derek Lawson, the man she had met by chance at a lavish London party, had not contacted each other since that night. For both of them, it was nothing more than a fleeting mistake, a moment of weakness between two people from vastly different worlds. But everything changed when Hannah began experiencing unusual fatigue. At first, she attributed it to work stress, sleepless nights, or simply the changing seasons. However, as the symptoms grew more persistent, morning nausea, constant exhaustion, and strange food cravings, she could no longer deny the truth. One early morning, she held a pregnancy test in trembling hands, her heartbeat racing when the two red lines appeared clearly before her eyes. It took a few moments for her to fully grasp the reality, and a wave of fear washed over her. But it was only when she lay on the examination bed at the obstetrics clinic, staring at the screen, that the truth became undeniable. "Congratulations, Hannah," the doctor said with a warm smile. "You're expecting triplets." "Triplets?" Hannah sat up abruptly, staring at the screen where 3 tiny heartbeats pulsed in rhythmic harmony. Her breath caught in her throat. How could this be? Derek had told her he couldn't have children. The doctors had confirmed he was completely infertile. Then where did these 3 babies come from? Leaving the clinic, Hannah felt a whirlwind of emotions. Her mind was racing with endless questions, each without an answer. But there was one thing she knew for sure. Derek had to know. After many sleepless nights, Hannah finally made the decision to return to London, carrying a secret too big to keep to herself. She stepped out of Heathrow Airport on a gloomy afternoon, the biting wind whipping through her hair. Standing in front of the hotel where she had stayed before, memories of that fateful night came rushing back. She shook her head, pushing them aside, reminding herself of the only reason she was here, to tell Derek that he was going to be a father. Hannah arranged a meeting with Derek through his assistant. The meeting took place at Lawson Innovations headquarters, an imposing glass skyscraper in the heart of London. As she walked into the luxurious conference room, Derek stood by the window, his back turned to her. His tall frame, broad shoulders, and composed demeanor remained unchanged. "Hannah?" His familiar deep voice filled the room, though this time with a hint of tension. He turned around, his piercing gray eyes scanning her, and for a brief moment she caught a flicker of surprise before it was concealed behind his usual calm exterior. "I didn't think we'd see each other again." Hannah took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "I need to talk to you. About us." Derek crossed his arms, his gaze scrutinizing. "Us?" She clenched her hands under the table, feeling the coldness of her fingers. "I'm pregnant, Derek. 3 months now. And it's triplets." The room fell into an eerie silence, so quiet that Hannah could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her chest. Derek's eyes widened for a brief second, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw undeniable disbelief written all over his face. "That's impossible," he muttered, his voice catching in his throat. "I thought so too," Hannah said, keeping her tone as steady as she could. "I know what you told me, but this is real, and you need to know." Derek took a step back, his gaze clouded with confusion as he forced himself to confront a reality he had always believed to be impossible. "The doctors told me my chances of having children were 0, Hannah." "Are you sure?" Hannah's grip tightened. "I've done multiple tests, 3 to be exact. All confirmed it." Derek stood frozen, his hand instinctively resting on the edge of the table, as if he needed something to hold on to stay grounded. Hope and doubt warred within him, threatening to unravel everything he thought he knew. But before he could respond, the door to the conference room burst open. Jennifer Blake, the company's head of PR, strode in with an urgent expression. "Derek, you need to see this, right now." She placed a thick file and a tablet in front of him, displaying a front-page article from the Financial Times. "Lawson Innovations accused of unauthorized medical trials. Biogen Tech demands immediate investigation." Derek scanned the headline, his jaw clenching. Nathan Blackwood had made his move. Do we know where they got this information? Derek's voice was icily calm. Jennifer shook her head, worry etched across her features. It seems Biogen has reached out to some of our former employees. They're accusing us of conducting clinical trials on patients without full regulatory approval. Hannah sat silently, watching Derek process the crisis unfolding before him. The tension in his every move was palpable. He was not only dealing with a personal shock, but also facing the imminent threat of losing everything he had built. "We need an emergency meeting with legal and the board," Derek ordered, his eyes still locked on the screen, his mind already racing through possible strategies. Hannah felt a lump in her throat. She had come here to talk about their unborn children, but it was clear Derek was in the middle of a much bigger storm than she had imagined. Derek finally looked up at her, his once warm gray eyes now cold and distant. I can't deal with this right now," he said, his voice hoarse. "I need time." Hannah nodded, but deep down she knew there wasn't much time to wait. "I'm not going anywhere, Derek. We'll talk when you're ready." But the real question remained. Would Derek ever truly be ready to face this reality? Derek Lawson sat silently in his spacious office, the lights of London casting faint streaks across his sleek desk through the thick glass windows. In front of him lay the ultrasound results that Hannah had brought, the blurry images of 3 tiny lives etched onto the white paper. He stared at them, his mind a whirlwind of fragile hope and deep skepticism. 3 babies, he murmured, tracing his fingers along the image. Every doctor he'd ever consulted, every test he'd undergone, had all confirmed one thing. He couldn't have children. It was a truth he'd been forced to accept for years. So how could this possibly be real? When Hannah had stood before him just hours earlier, her eyes shimmering with determination, Derek hadn't known how to react. A part of him wanted to believe her, to believe in miracles, but logic refused to let him. Hannah had looked him straight in the eye when she said, "Derek, I know this is hard to believe, but it's the truth. I don't want anything from you. I just thought you should know." But instead of gratitude, his first reaction was doubt. Part of it stemmed from fear, part from the nature of a businessman who always prioritized logic and facts. "Are you sure they're mine?" The words escaped his mouth faster than he could stop them, and instantly he saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes. Hannah pressed her lips together and nodded. "I understand you need time, and I understand you want proof. We'll do a DNA test. But Derek, regardless of the result, I'm keeping them." She left his office shortly after, leaving Derek alone with his chaotic thoughts. He wanted to believe in this miracle, but the fear of being deceived, of hoping only to be let down again, made him hesitate. But Derek didn't have much time to dwell on his thoughts. Just days later, the media exploded with news of the mysterious relationship between the CEO of Lawson Innovations and investigative journalist Hannah Cole. Photos of them together at the charity event 3 months ago resurfaced, plastered across headlines with sensational captions. "Billionaire Derek Lawson's secret love affair, an unexpected triplet scandal. Infertile CEO to become a father, truth or PR stunt? Hannah Cole, investigative journalist or gold digger?" Within Lawson Innovations, chaos erupted. The board of directors demanded an emergency meeting to address the situation, while shareholders grew increasingly concerned about how Derek's personal scandal could affect the company's value. Jennifer Blake, the head of PR, stormed into his office with a worried expression. "We need to shut this down immediately, Derek. If you don't release an official statement, our stock is going to keep plummeting. The press is blowing this out of proportion, and investors are panicking." Derek rubbed his temple, feeling the familiar throb of an impending headache. "So what do you suggest I say, Jennifer? That I don't know if I'm actually the father of those babies?" Jennifer shook her head. "We can't say that publicly, not until the DNA results are in. For now, the best course of action is to remain silent and avoid any interviews." Derek sighed, exhaustion etched into his features. "What about Hannah? Is she being harassed?" Jennifer hesitated. "The media is all over her. There are rumors that Biogen Tech might be behind the leak to put more pressure on you." Hearing Biogen Tech and Nathan Blackwood's name made Derek's jaw tighten. Nathan would stop at nothing to bring him down, and using his personal life as ammunition was just another move in his relentless game. Across London, Hannah was feeling the crushing weight of the situation. The press hounded her at every turn, throwing endless questions about her relationship with Derek and whether she had trapped him. She tried to stay composed, but deep down, fear gnawed at her. Then early one morning, a message from Derek appeared on her phone. "I've arranged the DNA test for tomorrow. I'll be there with you." Hannah exhaled a sigh of relief. Despite his doubts, at least Derek was willing to face the truth. She knew that the test wasn't just to prove the truth to him, but also to protect the 3 innocent lives she carried from the cruel speculations of the world. When she arrived at the hospital the next day, Derek was already there, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. His eyes were tired but resolute. Hannah said nothing, simply watching him. After a long pause, Derek let out a deep breath. "No matter what the results say, I'll take responsibility for them." His serious tone made something inside her ease. "Thank you," she whispered. The test was conducted in silence, the only sounds being the rhythmic tapping of the doctor's keyboard and the occasional glance exchanged between them. When it was over, Derek simply nodded and walked away. But Hannah knew that for both of them, the countdown to the truth had already begun. In the days awaiting the results, Derek found himself torn between conflicting thoughts. He wanted to believe in the miracle, yet at the same time, he feared that it was all just a mistake, or worse, an elaborate trap. The uncertainty gnawed at him, filling his mind with doubts he couldn't shake. Meanwhile, Hannah reassured herself that no matter the outcome, she would remain the mother of these 3 children, and she would fight for them with everything she had. The weight of responsibility felt immense, but she was determined to face whatever lay ahead with unwavering strength. Both of them knew that once the truth was revealed, nothing would ever be the same again. Less than 2 days after the news of Derek Lawson and Hannah Cole's relationship flooded the headlines, a new article appeared in The Guardian with a sensational title, "Is Lawson Innovations Hiding Secret Fertility Experiments? CEO Derek Lawson, Suddenly Expecting Children Despite Infertility Diagnosis." Derek placed the newspaper down on his desk, his eyes darkening as he read the bold headline. He was no stranger to media attacks, but this time, the story wasn't just another harmless rumor. It was a calculated strike from the one person with the motive to destroy him. Nathan Blackwood, CEO of Biogen Tech, his fiercest rival in the medical technology industry. Across the desk, Jennifer Blake, his head of PR, stood with visible tension etched on her face. "Nathan isn't just spreading rumors," she said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "He's pushing this narrative to our shareholders, making them believe you use the company to conduct unauthorized fertility experiments on yourself." Derek clenched his fists, a surge of anger rising in his chest. "Ridiculous! Everyone knows I would never do something like that. Lawson Innovations has never conducted any trials without full regulatory approval." Jennifer sighed and slid a stack of documents toward him. "That's true, but Nathan has fabricated a series of evidence, doctored reports, false testimonies from former employees, and even manipulated images to make it all seem credible." Derek flipped through the pages, his sharp eyes scanning the dense accusations. Some of the forgeries were so meticulously crafted that even a seasoned legal team would struggle to find the flaws. "The board meeting is coming up," Jennifer continued, her voice heavy with urgency, "and several major stakeholders are demanding answers. If you can't provide a solid explanation, they might vote to strip you of control over the company." Derek took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay composed. "We need time. The paternity test results will prove I didn't manipulate anything." Jennifer nodded, but her expression remained grim. "The problem is, we don't have time. Nathan knows that. He's accelerating the pressure, feeding these rumors to every media outlet. Our stock has already dropped by 12% this morning." Across the city, Hannah was facing chaos of her own. Everywhere she went, she was followed. Reporters swarmed outside her hotel, cameras flashing the moment she stepped out the door. Calls from colleagues were relentless, all asking about her secret relationship with Derek. Texts from old friends were filled with curiosity and judgment. Pulling her cap lower over her face, Hannah hurried out of the hotel, but the swarm of journalists descended on her instantly. "Ms. Cole, did you know about Derek's fertility experiments before you met him? Do you actually love him? Or is this just a scheme to capitalize on his fame? Are the triplets part of some secret arrangement? Hannah bit her lip, trying to maintain her composure, as one reporter got dangerously close. No comment, she said firmly, her voice cold but her heart pounding in turmoil. Ducking into a nearby cafe, she pulled out her phone and saw multiple unread messages from Derek. Are you okay? Stay put. I'll send security. She sighed, realizing that she couldn't keep avoiding the inevitable. Taking a deep breath, she replied, I'm fine, but we need to act now. Derek stood outside the conference room, gazing through the glass at the stern faces of the shareholders. These were the same people who once believed in his vision, and now they were questioning his integrity and ethics. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside, offering a brief nod before taking his seat. Arthur Grayson, one of the oldest and most conservative shareholders, wasted no time in addressing him. Derek, I think you understand why we're here, Grayson said, his voice measured but firm. We need to know if you've used the company's technology to address your personal issues. Derek met his gaze, his voice cold but unwavering. Absolutely not. Lawson Innovations has never conducted any fertility experiments involving me. These rumors are completely false, and I will clear this up as soon as the DNA results are available. Grayson frowned, tapping his fingers on the table. The problem, Derek, is that by the time those results come through, the damage may already be done. Nathan Blackwood is exploiting the uncertainty to manipulate public opinion. You need a strategy to counter this. Now. Derek clenched his fists under the table, his jaw tightening. I understand everyone's concerns. We are already taking legal action against Biogen Tech, and I will restore the company's reputation. And what about that journalist? Another shareholder chimed in. We need to know if she's part of this scheme. Derek shot to his feet, his voice sharp with defiance. Hannah has nothing to do with Nathan's lies. She has no reason to destroy me, and I trust her. A heavy silence fell over the room. After a long pause, Grayson nodded slowly. You have 1 week, Derek. If you can't prove your innocence, we will have to act in the company's best interest. Derek walked out of the boardroom, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting to prove the truth to Hannah. He was fighting to protect the empire he had built with his blood and sweat. And somewhere out there, Nathan Blackwood was likely smiling in triumph, believing he had finally backed Derek into a corner. But what Nathan didn't realize was that Derek Lawson was not a man who fell easily, and soon he was going to find that out. Derek Lawson sat silently in his penthouse apartment, his vacant eyes gazing down at the bustling streets of London below. The headlights of cars streaming along the Thames reflected off the glass window, but the beauty of the city no longer held a place in his thoughts. In front of him lay 2 crucial documents, a formal proposal from the board urging him to step down temporarily as CEO to protect the company's reputation, and a sealed envelope containing the DNA test results. He picked up the envelope, his heart pounding in his chest, hands trembling as he carefully tore it open. The results were clear, undeniable. Derek was the father of the 3 children. The room seemed to spin around him. A wave of emotions surged through, shock, joy, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. It was real, no more doubts. But with that joy came a weight that settled heavily on his shoulders. Just then, Jennifer, his PR chief, entered the room, her expression cautious. Good news or bad? She asked tentatively. Derek looked up, his voice hoarse. They're mine. Jennifer nodded slowly, as if she had already expected it. So what's your next move? The board is pressing hard, and they want your decision now. Derek closed his eyes briefly. He knew he had 2 choices. Stay silent, sacrifice his personal life to shield Lawson Innovations, or come clean, embrace the risks, and fight for what truly mattered. The family he never thought he could have. When he opened his eyes, his decision was made. I'm going public, he said firmly. I can't keep living under speculation, and I won't let Nathan control my narrative anymore. Jennifer sighed, but after a moment she nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. I'll get the media strategy ready. Are you sure about this? Derek stood, his gaze steady. More than ever. That afternoon, Derek made his way to Hannah's modest apartment in London. When she opened the door, her face was cautious, her eyes weary from days of relentless media scrutiny. I got the results, Derek said, his voice calm yet resolute. Hannah held her breath, waiting. Derek stepped inside and handed her the envelope. The children are mine. There's no doubt anymore. She took the paper with trembling hands, reading it over and over, as if needing to ensure she wasn't imagining it. When her eyes finally met his, the initial anger she had carried dissipated, replaced by relief and apprehension. So, what now? She asked softly. Derek stepped closer, placing a hand on the table between them, his gaze unwavering. I want to be a father, and I want to do it right. Hannah stood still, taking in the sincerity in his voice. She had feared he would walk away, choosing his empire over this unexpected reality. But here he was, standing in front of her, a man willing to face his responsibilities. We'll do this together, she said. And for the first time since she had discovered her pregnancy, she felt she wasn't alone in carrying this burden. That evening, they sat down to discuss their future, how they would raise their children, their fears and their hopes. Derek immersed himself in parenting books that Hannah handed him and even signed up for a parenting course for expectant fathers. I can't believe I'm going to have 3 kids, he murmured, flipping through a section on newborn care. Hannah chuckled. Believe me, I still haven't wrapped my head around it either. And in that moment, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, they both found solace in the fact that they were facing it together. As they prepared for the arrival of their 3 children, Derek couldn't sit idly by and let Nathan continue to sabotage his work. Determined to fight back, he reached out to a top-tier investigative team to uncover evidence of Biogen Tech's illegal activities. In his private office, Derek sat across from Ethan Carter, a former MI6 agent turned corporate investigator. Ethan opened his laptop and presented his initial findings. We found some irregular financial transactions between Biogen Tech and several former Lawson Innovations employees, Ethan reported. It appears Nathan has been paying them to provide false information about your medical trials. Derek's expression hardened. What will it take to expose him? Ethan smirked. A little patience and a few conversations with the right people. They devised a strategy to turn the tables by leaking information that Lawson Innovations was planning to release a full financial report and internal research findings, forcing Biogen Tech to react under media pressure. A few weeks later, at a major press conference at Lawson Innovations headquarters, Derek stepped onto the stage, the bright lights of the cameras shining directly onto his resolute face. The DNA test results have confirmed that I am the father of the triplets, and there has been no medical intervention involved, Derek declared firmly. Lawson Innovations has never conducted any unauthorized trials. He paused, letting his words sink in as his gaze swept across the crowded room of reporters. However, there is a company that deliberately spread false information in an attempt to undermine us, and we will not let them get away with it. At that very moment, Derek's investigative team uncovered evidence proving that Nathan Blackwood had bribed several officials to cover up Biogen Tech's failed medical trials. The news spread rapidly, and within days, Biogen found itself at the center of a major scandal. Nathan scrambled to deny the accusations, but the overwhelming evidence left him with no way out. With Nathan forced to step down from Biogen Tech and Lawson Innovations regaining its footing, Derek and Hannah could finally focus on each other and prepare for their growing family. Derek purchased a spacious home in the outskirts of London, providing ample space for their soon-to-be bustling household. One afternoon, as they stood in the nursery they had just finished painting, Derek glanced at Hannah with a soft smile. "What do you think?" he asked. Hannah placed her hands on her belly, feeling the tiny kicks from within. "I think we're going to be okay." Derek wrapped his arms around her from behind, whispering into her ear, "We won't just be okay. We'll be happy." And for the first time in months, Hannah truly believed it. As the days passed, Hannah's belly grew larger, and with it, Derek's constant worries. Although they were gradually adapting to their new life, the pressures of work, media attention, and Hannah's health created an atmosphere of tension that neither of them could ignore. By the 6th month of her pregnancy, Hannah's discomfort had escalated. Persistent back pain, dizziness, and exhaustion became more severe. One morning, while Derek was engrossed in preparing for an important board meeting, Hannah suddenly felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She clutched her abdomen, a sharp pain shooting through her, and collapsed onto the living room floor. Derek heard the thud and rushed to her side, his heart pounding in his chest. "Hannah, are you okay? I'm calling an ambulance." She weakly shook her head, her voice trembling. I'm a little tired. I just need to rest." But Derek's eyes were filled with worry. "No, we can't take any chances. I'm taking you to the hospital right now." Within 15 minutes, an ambulance arrived and rushed them to St. Thomas Hospital. The medical team immediately took over, running tests and monitoring Hannah's condition closely. The lead physician, Dr. Philip Carter, a renowned specialist in high-risk pregnancies, entered the room with a serious expression. "Ms. Cole's condition is concerning," he said, his tone calm but firm. "She's showing signs of preeclampsia, a serious complication for pregnancies involving multiples. Her blood pressure is dangerously high, and there's a risk of preterm labor. Our priority now is to prolong the pregnancy for as long as possible while ensuring both her safety and the baby's." Derek sat beside Hannah, his hand tightly wrapped around hers and his voice hoarse with emotion. "Do whatever it takes. I don't care about the cost. Just keep her and the baby safe." Hannah, her face pale but resolute, looked at Derek with concern in her eyes. "You have your work, the company. You don't have to be here all the time." Derek's grip on her hand tightened, his gaze unwavering. "You are what matters most to me right now. The company can be rebuilt, but I can't lose you." At that moment, Derek realized that no matter how powerful he was as a CEO, there were things beyond his control. Business could be rebuilt, but family was irreplaceable. Over the following days, Derek put his business commitments on hold, choosing to stay by Hannah's side. He handled board meetings remotely and delegated tasks to his most trusted executives, but his primary focus remained on her health and the unborn children. Despite the tension, the hospital room became a place of quiet bonding. Late at night, when the monitors beeped rhythmically, Derek would sit by Hannah's bedside, reading baby care books aloud, or simply holding her hand in silent support. "I never thought I'd say this," Hannah murmured one evening, watching Derek study a baby sleep schedule chart with surprising dedication. "But you're going to be an amazing dad." Derek smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I didn't think I'd ever get the chance," he admitted, "but now that I do, I don't intend to mess it up." As weeks passed under careful monitoring, Derek and Hannah's bond deepened. The once distant CEO and the fiercely independent journalist were now navigating the uncertainties of parenthood together, facing each day with a mix of fear and hope. But as the due date approached, new challenges loomed on the horizon, ones that would test their resilience and love in ways they never anticipated. While Derek was spending time with Hannah at the hospital, his investigative team, led by Ethan Carter, continued their search for evidence against Nathan Blackwood. After weeks of relentless effort, they finally uncovered a major loophole in Biogen Tech's clinical trial reports. Ethan walked into Hannah's hospital room, holding a thick stack of documents. "Derek, we have what you need." Derek took the documents, flipping through the pages, his eyes growing sharper as he absorbed the contents. He manipulated the clinical trial results, fabricated data to secure FDA approval for his product. Ethan nodded. "Exactly. We found evidence that some of the trial participants were actually his people, and the positive results were faked to cover up dangerous side effects." Derek exhaled, a mix of anger and relief washing over him. "Perfect. We're going public with this. Are you still following the story? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think about it." 2 days later, despite his concern for Hannah, Derek had to return to Lawson Innovations headquarters for the decisive shareholders meeting. The atmosphere in the boardroom was so tense it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Once everyone was seated, Nathan Blackwood entered with his usual smug demeanor, dressed impeccably in a tailored suit. "We're here to discuss the issues surrounding Lawson Innovations, correct?" he smirked. Derek didn't let him take the upper hand. He stood up, his gaze sharp, his voice commanding. "Before we talk about my company, I think we need to clarify some matters regarding Biogen Tech." On the large screen, the documents collected by his investigative team were displayed. The shareholders watched intently as Derek presented the evidence piece by piece, from secret email exchanges between Nathan and bribed researchers to the fraudulent financial reports of Biogen Tech. Nathan used underhanded tactics to manipulate trial results, Derek concluded firmly, and Lawson Innovations will not allow this to continue. The room erupted in murmurs, with several shareholders beginning to question Nathan, and some even distancing themselves from him. Facing mounting pressure from the media and shareholders, Nathan was ultimately forced to withdraw from the legal battle and left the meeting in disgrace. Derek let out a deep breath of relief, knowing he had regained the trust of the company, but more importantly, he had protected his integrity. Legal victory did not make Derek forget what truly mattered. Hannah. Right after the meeting, he rushed back to the hospital, but the moment he stepped into the room, he sensed something was wrong. Hannah lay on the bed, sweat beading on her forehead, her breathing labored. Dr. Philip Carter approached, his expression grave. "Derek, we need to operate immediately. She's experiencing severe preeclampsia. If we don't act now, both mother and babies will be at serious risk." Derek's heart clenched. He grasped Hannah's hand tightly, his voice hoarse. "You're going to be fine. I'm right here." Hannah managed a faint smile. "Promise me. If anything happens, take care of them." "No, you're going to get through this," Derek whispered, pressing a kiss to her forehead. The surgery lasted 3 tense hours, with Derek pacing outside the operating room, his hands clenched so tightly they turned white. Each passing second felt like an eternity. Finally, when the doctor emerged, Derek jumped to his feet. "How is she?" The doctor gave a reassuring smile. "All 3 babies are safe. Hannah is stable, but she'll need time to recover." Derek felt tears welling up, an emotion he rarely allowed himself to show. When he was finally allowed into the recovery room, he saw Hannah lying on the bed, exhausted but glowing as she gazed at their 3 tiny angels in the incubator. He took her hand, whispering, "You did amazing." She squeezed his hand weakly, her voice filled with happiness. "We did it." Derek leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss on each of their foreheads. "Welcome to the world, my little ones." Amid the storm of public scrutiny, hardships, and uncertainties, Derek finally realized that he had found the most important thing in his life, a real family. After hours of intense surgery, their 3 babies were finally born safely, 2 boys and a girl. Although they arrived prematurely, all 3 were healthy and full of life. In the recovery room, Derek held Hannah's hand tightly, gazing at her with eyes full of love. "You did so well," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Hannah gave a weak smile, her eyes brimming with tears of joy as she looked at the 3 little angels in their incubators. "We did it," she whispered. Derek leaned down and kissed each of his children on the forehead, softly welcoming them to the world. He had never imagined feeling such immense love. The overwhelming joy of becoming a father made him realize that his true legacy wasn't his career, but the precious moments spent with his family. A few months later, when Hannah had fully recovered and the triplets were healthy enough to go home, Derek decided it was time to turn a long-held dream into reality. One afternoon, as they sat by the River Thames, watching the breathtaking sunset, Derek took out a simple yet elegant ring and knelt before Hannah. "Hannah Cole," he said, his voice sincere and warm, "you walked into my life like a gentle breeze, bringing things I never dared to dream of. Let's build a complete family together. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Hannah's cheeks as she looked at him. She nodded softly, her voice choked with emotion. "I've been yours for a long time, Derek." They had a small wedding by the river, with only close family and friends as witnesses. Their 3 babies were cradled in their arms, a testament to the love and miracle they had created together. There was no extravagance, no distinguished guests, just the warmth and sincerity of those who truly cared. As the golden hues of twilight bathed them, Derek held Hannah close during their first dance as husband and wife, whispering in her ear, "This family is the greatest thing I've ever had." After the wedding, Derek returned to work with a completely new mindset. With Hannah's unwavering support, he decided to steer Lawson Innovations in a more humanitarian direction, focusing on reproductive technology and family health. The company began developing products specifically for couples struggling with infertility and expanded financial aid for families in need. At the same time, Derek and Hannah established a charity foundation called the Miracle Project, dedicated to supporting orphan children and single mothers facing hardships. The launch event of the foundation garnered widespread media attention, not because it was backed by a corporate giant, but because of the inspiring story of Derek and Hannah themselves. Family is not just about blood ties, Derek said during his speech at the launch event. It's about the people who love each other and overcome every obstacle to find their way to one another. After a long legal battle, the evidence against Nathan Blackwood was made public. He was charged with market manipulation, falsifying clinical trial results, and faced a series of legal accusations. Biogen Tech plunged into a severe crisis, forcing Nathan to sell off his shares to avoid bankruptcy. Derek took no pleasure in this victory, understanding that true success lay not in bringing others down, but in building something better. He dedicated himself to his family and his company, becoming not only a respected leader, but also an admired one for his unwavering commitment. On a beautiful weekend, Derek and Hannah enjoyed a picnic at their riverside home on the Thames with their 3 children. Hannah's smile shone brighter than ever as she watched Derek play with the kids. The 2 boys ran across the grassy lawn while their little girl curled up in Derek's arms, fast asleep. Hannah leaned her head on her husband's shoulder and sighed happily. "Do you have any regrets?" Derek smiled, his gaze fixed on their children. "Not at all. Everything that happened led me here, to you and our children. This is the legacy I want to leave behind." The gentle breeze carried the sound of their children's laughter across the river. Gone were the pressures of work and the anxieties of stormy days past. Now the only thing that mattered was the love and bond they had built as a family. The story emphasizes that family is the most valuable legacy, surpassing fame and wealth. It conveys a message of love, perseverance, and the miracles of life, as Derek and Hannah overcome all challenges to create a complete family. Happiness does not come from material success, but from the simple moments shared with loved ones. At the same time, the story highlights the values of sincerity and generosity, showing that true success comes from giving and helping others. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Let us know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. What type of stories would you like to hear next? Don't forget to like, share this story, and subscribe. The dim light of the winter sun filtered through the thick frost, casting an eerie and cold glow over the Aurora Research Facility. Situated on a remote island in the Arctic, Aurora represents the world's hope in combating climate change while simultaneously being the focal point of intense political and economic disputes. The Aurora Project was established to develop cutting-edge renewable energy technology, harnessing the power of wind and solar energy in the polar region to provide clean energy and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Its success has the potential to revolutionize the global energy industry. However, this immense potential has drawn the attention of major powers such as the US, Russia, China, and the European Union, all vying to control the project's technology to expand their economic and political influence. It's not just nations. Massive oil and gas corporations also see Aurora as a direct threat to their profits. They have sought to obstruct the project through various means, from political pressure to covert sabotage. Sterling Innovations, the primary sponsor of the project led by Ryan Sterling, faces internal pressure as well. His father, Harold Sterling, wants to transfer the technology to oil corporations for profit, while Ryan fights to preserve the project's original vision. Outside, the massive wind turbines spin sluggishly against the biting wind. But inside, a silent battle for power and interest threatens Aurora's future and the hope for a sustainable world. Emma Carter, a wind energy technology specialist, arrived at Aurora just yesterday. She endured a tough selection process to join the project, bringing with her a burning passion and determination to protect her research from the greedy eyes of major corporations. Coming from a humble background, Emma understands she cannot afford to back down. Meanwhile, Ryan Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Innovations, landed at the facility this morning in his private helicopter. A powerful man with a cold demeanor, Ryan is not only dealing with the pressures of his work but also from his father, who as chairman of the board constantly seeks to control his every decision. Inside the research facility, Emma entered a small room she assumed to be a storage area. She shrugged off her heavy coat, feeling the biting cold creep onto her skin. Her breath turned into thin clouds in the frigid air. Her wet sweater clung tightly to her skin, making her shiver as she pulled it over her head, exposing her slender shoulders, flushed red from the cold. As she fumbled for a clean, protective suit hanging on the wall, the door suddenly swung open. Emma spun around, her heartbeat racing as her eyes met the surprised gray ones of the man standing in the doorway. Ryan Sterling, the powerful CEO, stood frozen, his gaze flickering from her exposed skin to her face, which had shifted from surprise to anger. She quickly pulled the coat up to cover herself, her eyes sharp and defensive. Ryan stood there tall and imposing in his thick black coat, his steady breath visible in the cold air. His sharp features and neatly trimmed dark brown hair remained composed, but his eyes betrayed a mix of curiosity and awkwardness. He hadn't expected to encounter anyone here, let alone a woman with such a fierce, defiant gaze. "What are you doing here?" Emma snapped, her voice laced with both embarrassment and irritation. Ryan hesitated for a moment before regaining his usual composed demeanor, a faint, unreadable smile tugging at his lips. "I should be asking you that. This is a storage room, right?" Emma frowned, trying to regain her composure as she pulled her coat back over her shoulders. "No," Ryan replied, stepping inside with an infuriatingly calm posture. "This is a security zone." Emma's breath caught, a chill running down her spine. She glanced around and noticed the large metal cabinets filled with classified documents and high-tech equipment, nothing like an ordinary storage room. "Then I must have made a mistake," she said, her voice steady but her mind racing. How could she have made such a foolish error on her very first day? Ryan studied her intently, as if analyzing every slight movement. "It seems so, but I'm curious. Who are you?" Emma took a deep breath, reminding herself that she had no reason to feel intimidated. "Emma Carter. I'm part of the wind energy research team." A flicker of recognition passed through Ryan's eyes. "Ah, the wind energy prodigy everyone's been talking about." Emma pursed her lips, annoyed by his slightly mocking tone. "And you are?" Ryan crossed his arms, his gaze never leaving hers. "Ryan Sterling, the one running this project." Emma blinked. The CEO of Sterling Innovations, the man with absolute authority over Aurora. "I didn't expect a CEO to have enough free time to inspect research rooms," she quipped, her blue eyes gleaming with challenge. Ryan smirked, taking a deliberate step closer. "Just like I didn't expect a talented researcher to overlook the facility's layout." Emma bit her lip, more frustrated with herself than with him. "I guess I made a mistake," she said, slipping past him to exit the room. But as she reached the door, Ryan's voice stopped her. "We'll be seeing each other again, Emma." She turned to meet his sharp gaze. "I doubt that, Mr. Sterling. I'm here to work, not socialize." Ryan didn't respond, only offering a mysterious smile as the door closed behind her. Standing outside, Emma's heart was still beating faster than usual. She wasn't sure why she felt so uneasy. Was it because of Ryan Sterling, or because his presence in the project posed a greater threat than she had anticipated? One thing was certain, he wasn't someone easy to deal with, and if she wanted to protect her project, she needed to be more careful than ever. Welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss our meaningful daily stories. Chapter 1. The First Secret, a Hidden Conflict. From the moment Emma Carter set foot in the Aurora Research Facility, she sensed that something was amiss. On the surface, it was a grand scientific endeavor, a place where the brightest minds in the world gathered to develop sustainable energy solutions for the future. Yet beneath this polished facade lay a complex web of hidden agendas, with watchful eyes tracking her every move, some filled with caution and others with suspicion. Aurora was not just an ordinary research facility. Nestled deep within the harsh Arctic, it was equipped with the most advanced security systems, surveillance cameras monitoring every corner, and security teams patrolling around the clock. Emma soon realized that she wasn't only working alongside scientists, but also covert government agents, corporate spies from traditional energy conglomerates, looking for opportunities to sabotage, and even mysterious, non-governmental organizations with a vested interest in the project. The constant feeling of being watched robbed her of sleep for many nights. Every time Emma walked down the long, icy corridors, she felt prying eyes and heard hushed whispers trailing behind her. But suspicion didn't just come from the shadows. It came from within her own research team. Dr. Victor Larson, one of the senior engineers on the project, was a seasoned professional known for his arrogance and extreme skepticism. At first, he observed Emma from a distance, assessing her sudden arrival with thinly veiled disapproval. But as the project progressed, Larson began spreading rumors. Emma Carter wasn't chosen for her talent. Maybe she has a special connection with Ryan Sterling. The rumors spread like wildfire through Aurora's icy corridors. Emma soon noticed the wary glances whenever she entered the lab, the condescending smirks whenever she presented her ideas. Her colleagues began to distance themselves, subtly treating her as an outsider who had gained a position not through merit, but through Sterling Innovations' influence. She felt the weight of pressure bearing down on her. Meetings turned into silent battlegrounds, where her every question was met with skepticism or outright dismissal. What frustrated Emma the most was that Ryan did nothing to quell the rumors. He merely watched from a distance, neither defending her nor offering explanations. This led Emma to wonder, was Ryan truly supporting her, or was she just a pawn in a larger game? One evening, while reviewing data in the lab, Dr. Larson approached her, his face lined with a smug expression. "Are you sure you understand what you're doing, Carter?" he asked, his tone laced with mockery. "Or are you just following orders from someone else?" Emma clenched her fists, her eyes flashing with defiance. "I don't need to prove anything to you, Doctor. Larson, my results will speak for themselves." Larson shrugged. "I hope so, young lady." While Emma struggled with the rumors and distrust within the research team, Ryan Sterling was caught in a battle of his own, a family conflict he could no longer evade. His father, Harold Sterling, was a ruthless businessman, a titan in the traditional energy sector who saw Aurora not as a scientific breakthrough, but as a financial asset. He had never believed that renewable energy could fully replace fossil fuels. However, with Aurora's advancements, the threat to Sterling Innovations' traditional operations was becoming more evident than ever. In a tense video call from the corporate headquarters in New York, Harold's piercing gaze bore into his son. "Ryan, we need to talk." Ryan crossed his arms, trying to remain composed. "I know what you're going to say, but I won't do it." Harold's voice was low but carried an unmistakable threat. "How long do you think you can keep up this idealistic charade? The oil giants are willing to pay billions for the technology you're developing at Aurora. We can't hold on to it forever." Ryan shook his head, his tone firm. "I won't sell out humanity's future for profit. Aurora can change the world." Harold smirked. "The world doesn't care about change, son. It cares about power and money." Ryan clenched his fists. "I won't do it." Harold leaned forward, his eyes cold. "If you refuse to cooperate, I will pull Sterling Innovations' funding from the project. And trust me, those vultures circling Aurora will tear it apart the moment you stumble." Ryan froze. He knew his father wasn't bluffing. Aurora relied heavily on Sterling Innovations' vast financial backing. Without it, the project would be shut down in an instant. "You have until tonight to decide," Harold said before the screen went dark. Ryan sat in silence, staring at the reports in front of him. He felt like a pawn in his father's game. Worse, Emma could be dragged into this tangled web of manipulation if he couldn't find a way to protect her from the dark forces closing in. The Arctic winds howled outside the thick glass windows, bringing with them a bone-chilling cold. Inside Aurora, both Emma and Ryan were facing difficult choices. On one side was their belief in the future, and on the other, forces that sought to manipulate and destroy their vision. Emma had no idea that Ryan's silence wasn't due to indifference, but because he was fighting to keep her safe in a battle where even he wasn't sure he could emerge victorious. Chapter 2. Technical Malfunction and Unveiled Secrets. The Aurora Research Facility, with its towering wind turbines standing tall against the vast white landscape, was entering its most crucial testing phase. The renewable energy system that Emma and her team had spent years developing was finally at the stage where it had to prove its efficiency. That morning, the snowfall was heavier than usual, reducing visibility across the island. Yet inside the control center, Emma remained intensely focused, her eyes fixed on the fluctuating data on the monitors with unwavering determination. A sudden blare of alarms jolted Emma from her concentration. The graphs on the main screen fluctuated wildly before the entire system lost connection. The lights in the control center flickered ominously before plunging the entire room into darkness. A loud explosion erupted from the primary turbine site, shaking the entire facility. "What's happening?" Emma shouted, rushing to the backup control panel. Engineers scrambled around her, frantically trying to restart the system, but their efforts were futile. A distressed voice crackled through the radio. "Turbine number 3 is heavily damaged. We need to evacuate the area immediately." Emma's heart pounded as she analyzed the system diagram. She quickly realized that the malfunction wasn't accidental. Someone had deliberately tampered with the control software. If the issue wasn't resolved swiftly, it could result in catastrophic damage, potentially derailing the entire project. She rushed to report her findings to the engineering team, but instead of support, she was met with accusatory stares. Dr. Victor Larson stepped forward, his voice cold and cutting. "Miss Carter, are you aware of the consequences of such negligence? A project of this magnitude, and you allow such a fundamental error?" Emma clenched her fists. "I don't believe this is a simple mistake. The system was tampered with. I need access to the data." Quote. Larson interrupted with a smirk. "Or perhaps you're just blaming someone else to cover your own incompetence. Look around. An entire facility blacked out because of a small oversight on your part." Whispers spread through the room, and Emma could feel the weight of suspicion growing heavier with each passing second. Fury burned within her, but she knew arguing would get her nowhere. Deep down, she realized she had to prove herself, not only to clear her name, but to expose the saboteur lurking within Aurora. That night, after everyone had left the lab, Emma stayed behind, combing through the system logs, searching for any traces of unauthorized access. Unbeknownst to her, Ryan Sterling had been silently observing from afar. "Emma!" His deep voice broke the silence, pulling her from her thoughts. He stood at the doorway, his sharp gaze revealing that he knew more than he was letting on. Emma sighed, not looking away from her screen. "Are you here to criticize me like everyone else?" Ryan stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Not exactly. I want to know what's really going on." Emma paused for a moment, then spoke in a low voice. "The system didn't fail due to an operational error. Someone deliberately tampered with the control software. I believe there's an internal sabotage at play." Ryan nodded slowly, his expression darkening. "I thought so too." Emma's eyes widened as she turned to face him. "You knew something, didn't you?" Ryan stepped closer, his gaze scanning the data on her screen. "I suspected that someone within the facility was leaking information to rival corporations. My father, he wants to use Aurora to benefit Sterling Innovations, but I refuse to let that happen." Emma studied him carefully, her suspicion beginning to wane. For the first time, she saw Ryan not as a cold, calculating CEO, but as a man caught between the crushing weight of his family's expectations and his own desire to do the right thing. "We need to act fast," Emma said, her voice filled with determination. "If we don't, the project will fall into the wrong hands and become just another profit-driven venture rather than a solution for the future." Ryan nodded. "I'll help you, but we need to be careful. If my father finds out that I'm investigating this, he won't hesitate to remove me from the equation." Together, they decided to review the security system, searching for any signs of unusual activity. They pored over hours of surveillance footage, maintenance logs, and access records, until finally a clue emerged. "There's a suspicious log from turbine number 3, Emma pointed at the screen. "Someone entered the restricted zone early yesterday morning, but the security data has been altered." Ryan leaned in, his brows furrowing. "Who has access to that area?" Emma exhaled deeply. "Doctor, Larson, and a handful of senior engineers." They exchanged knowing glances. If Larson was indeed behind the sabotage, It meant he was either being paid off by outside interests, or worse, working directly with Ryan's father. As they continued their investigation, Emma found herself seeing Ryan in a new light. He was not just a distant executive concerned with profits. He was a man under immense pressure, fighting against both corporate greed and his own family's ambition to protect what he believed in. Ryan, in turn, was drawn to Emma's resilience. She wasn't just brilliant, she was courageous, standing up against forces far greater than herself to defend her vision. Late nights spent working together gradually turned into quiet moments where they shared more than just work, dreams, fears, and their unwavering belief in the future they were fighting for. But both of them knew one thing: the closer they got to the truth, the greater the danger became. And Emma had a gut feeling that this was just the beginning of the real troubles that lay ahead. Chapter 3. Personal Conflicts and Emerging Emotions. Today, Emma froze in shock when she accidentally stumbled upon a contract displayed on the computer screen. Sterling Innovations had signed a secret agreement with Petroglobe, one of the largest oil conglomerates in the world, notorious for obstructing efforts to transition to renewable energy. According to the contract, Petroglobe would inject massive capital into Project Aurora, but in return, they would have exclusive rights to its advanced wind technology for the next 10 years. Emma felt a sharp sting of betrayal. Clutching the contract tightly, she marched straight to Ryan's office. "Can you explain this to me?" Her voice trembled, yet her gaze remained steely. "Why did you sell out the project to Petroglobe? You're no different from your father." Ryan sat tensely in his chair, rising slowly and shutting the door to avoid curious eyes in the hallway. "Emma, please let me explain before you jump to conclusions," he said, his voice calm yet urgent. "Explain," Emma scoffed, tossing the contract onto his desk. "They have a history of sabotaging clean energy initiatives, and you signed a deal with them?" Ryan sighed heavily, knowing how hard this truth was for her to accept. "Emma, I had no choice. Project Aurora was on the verge of losing all funding. My father wanted to sell our technology to competing oil giants at a higher price, and if I hadn't agreed to Petroglobe's offer, they would have pulled every dollar from this project." Emma shook her head, disappointment written all over her face. "So you compromised? You let this technology fall into the hands of those who will suffocate it?" Ryan stepped closer, his gaze sharp yet sincere. "I didn't compromise, Emma. The contract includes provisions that allow us to oversee its implementation. It's the only way to keep Aurora running without falling under complete control. I'm fighting in my own way." But Emma didn't want to hear it. Her heart clenched in frustration. She turned and left, leaving Ryan standing alone in his office, his face heavy with regret. Determined not to let the project fall into the wrong hands, Emma spent sleepless nights analyzing the contract, searching for loopholes Ryan could exploit to prevent Petroglobe from taking full control. She also reached out to a few trusted colleagues to gather more information. Through meticulous examination of electronic logs, Emma uncovered a shocking truth. Petroglobe's true intention wasn't just to utilize the technology, but to deliberately slow its large-scale deployment in order to protect their traditional oil market. The revelation reignited her fury. She decided to confront Ryan again, this time not just with anger, but with a clear plan. "You said Petroglobe can't control the entire project." Emma confronted him the next day, her voice steadier. "But they are doing everything to delay progress and render our innovations ineffective." Ryan looked at her, a mixture of pain and admiration in his eyes. "I know, and that's why I need you here. We need time to find a way out of this mess." Emma paused, realizing that instead of fighting him, they needed a smarter approach. In the days that followed, the tension between Emma and Ryan seeped into every corner of the facility. Every chance encounter in the cold, sterile hallways carried an unspoken weight between them. Emma tried to maintain her distance, but despite her doubts about Ryan, she couldn't deny the growing attraction she felt towards his resilience and unwavering dedication. One evening, during a sudden power outage at the facility, Emma and Ryan found themselves trapped together in the central control room. The dim glow of a flashlight illuminated his face, highlighting the strong yet tired features. "I'm sorry," Ryan said unexpectedly, his voice soft in the darkness. "I never wanted to disappoint you, but I'm walking a fine line between family obligations and my own dreams. Emma turned away, her voice quieter, but still tinged with skepticism. And what exactly is your dream, Ryan? Just another CEO trying to keep his family's legacy alive, or someone who truly wants to make a difference? Ryan remained silent for a long moment before finally speaking. My dream is a world where our technology isn't controlled by greed, where you can realize your full potential without being bound by external forces. She looked at him, and in that moment Emma realized that perhaps Ryan wasn't the betrayer she had thought. She saw the inner struggle within him and, in a way, understood the burden he carried. Though the doubts lingered, Emma decided to give Ryan a chance to prove himself. She proposed working together to amend certain clauses in the contract, using a legal loophole that might limit Petroglobe's influence. Ryan smiled faintly. Thank you, Emma. I know you didn't have to do this. Don't thank me yet, she said, her eyes gleaming with determination. We'll only work together if you promise to do things right from now on. Ryan nodded, a rare warmth filling his chest. For the first time in months, he felt like he wasn't fighting this battle alone. Though trust had not yet been fully restored, Emma and Ryan began working side by side to protect the project from corporate manipulation. They faced mounting challenges, not just from Petroglobe, but also from within Sterling Innovations itself. Would Emma ever fully trust Ryan? And would Ryan find the courage to break free from his family's shadow and stand up for what he truly believed in? Chapter 4. A Dangerous Conspiracy. Emma hurried down the long, freezing corridors of the Aurora Research Facility, clutching the latest system audit report she had just retrieved from the surveillance room. The numbers didn't match. The wind turbine performance metrics had dropped significantly without any clear explanation. She knew something was terribly wrong. For weeks, Dr. Victor Larson, one of Aurora's senior engineers, had openly questioned Emma's abilities, constantly scrutinizing her credentials and motives. But as time passed, she began to suspect that his hostility was more than just personal rivalry. Every recent technical failure seemed to have some connection to Larson and his team. That evening, while reviewing system data, Emma stumbled upon a hidden, encrypted file. Hours of painstaking decryption finally revealed shocking evidence. Larson was secretly working for a rival oil conglomerate, deliberately sabotaging the Aurora project. He had orchestrated the recent power failure to discredit the initiative, aiming to prove to the world that renewable energy was unreliable. No, this can't be, Emma whispered, her heart pounding. If this information got out, Aurora would collapse, and years of hard work would be wasted. Without wasting another second, she shut down the computer, grabbed the external drive containing the evidence, and rushed toward Ryan's office. But before she could reach him, a firm hand seized her arm from behind. Going somewhere in a hurry, Miss Carter? Larson's voice was as cold as the Arctic wind outside. Before Emma could react, he forced her into a dark corridor and injected a sedative into her arm. Her vision blurred and the world around her faded into darkness. When Emma regained consciousness, she found herself locked inside an abandoned lab on the outskirts of the research facility. The room was dimly lit and freezing, the cold seeping into her bones. The door was locked from the outside and panic began to creep into her mind. Outside, she could hear Larson speaking into a radio. She found the evidence, but don't worry, she won't get the chance to expose anything. His voice dripped with satisfaction. Emma knew she couldn't stay idle. She scanned the room, searching for an escape route. Amidst the old rusted equipment, her eyes landed on a ventilation duct just large enough for her to crawl through, if she could loosen the screws. With trembling hands numbed by the cold, Emma began unscrewing the bolts one by one. She had to escape and warn Ryan before it was too late. Are you still following the story? Feel free to share your thoughts about it. I'd love to hear what you think. Back at the main facility, Ryan was growing increasingly anxious. Emma had been missing for hours, and she wasn't someone who would disappear without a word. A deep sense of dread settled in his chest, amplified by the worsening blizzard outside. When was the last time anyone saw Emma? He asked the gathered technicians. No one had an answer. Instinct told him something was seriously wrong. Without hesitation, Ryan donned a heavy protective suit, grabbed a snowmobile, and ventured into the storm. He knew of an old, unused testing site. If someone wanted to keep Emma hidden, that would be the perfect place. The wind howled fiercely, tearing at his gear as he navigated through the blinding snow. Every second counted, and Ryan pressed forward, ignoring the biting cold and exhaustion. Meanwhile, Emma was making her way through the ventilation system, heart pounding with every cautious movement. Below, she could hear Larson's heavy footsteps echoing as he searched for her. She held her breath, praying that he wouldn't notice the open vent. After what felt like an eternity, she finally reached the outside. The icy wind hit her face like 1,000 needles, but she didn't care. She stumbled into the storm, disoriented and freezing, desperately searching for a way back to safety. Then through the blinding snow, she spotted a distant beam of light. Ryan. "Ryan!" she screamed, forcing her frozen legs to move toward him. The icy wind cut through her thin layers, but she pushed forward. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. "God, Emma, are you okay?" Ryan pulled her into his arms, his warmth the only thing keeping her from collapsing. "We have to go, now!" she gasped, clutching his hand. "Larson, he's trying to destroy everything." Before they could move, a sharp cracking sound echoed through the air. A massive fissure began to spread across the ice beneath them. "Run!" Ryan shouted, dragging Emma toward the snowmobile. The ice shattered just as they leaped onto the vehicle, speeding away through the storm. Emma's heart raced, adrenaline pumping as she held on to Ryan, feeling the life-threatening danger lurking behind them. Back at the facility, Emma collapsed into Ryan's arms, shivering uncontrollably. She looked up into his eyes, and for the first time, she saw something she had doubted for so long: genuine concern and unwavering support. "Ryan, I doubted you," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "But you came for me despite everything." He held her hands tightly. "I never wanted to betray you, Emma. All I ever wanted was to protect what we're building here." Emma nodded, the walls she had built around her heart slowly crumbling. "I believe you." Ryan leaned in, and this time Emma didn't pull away. Their lips met in a kiss warmer than anything the Arctic could ever offer, a moment of solace in the middle of chaos. As dawn broke over the icy horizon, they both knew that running was no longer an option. They had to face Larson and the forces behind him head on. Emma met Ryan's gaze, determination shining in her eyes. "We have to expose everything." Ryan smiled, a newfound sense of hope settling in his chest. "We will, together." Outside, the storm raged on, but within them, a stronger force had taken root: trust, resilience, and the unyielding desire to fight for the future they believed in. The Arctic sun cast a faint glow through the dense clouds as Emma stepped into the main conference room of the Aurora Research Facility. Inside, Ryan was already waiting, his expression serious but his gaze unwavering. Spread across the table were all the pieces of evidence against Dr. Victor Larson: encrypted files, internal emails, and testimonies from bribed staff members. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the tension in the air. They had worked tirelessly to gather this evidence, and now it was time to bring everything to light. "What's your plan?" she asked, eyes fixed on the files before them. Ryan stood, his face resolute. "We're going to present all of this to the board and the investors. Larson hasn't just been spying for the oil corporations. He's actively sabotaging Aurora to benefit those who oppose clean energy." Emma nodded, determination swelling in her chest. But she knew there was still a greater challenge ahead, facing Harold Sterling, Ryan's father, the man who had been pulling the strings from behind the scenes. As the meeting commenced, all eyes were on Larson, who struggled to maintain his composure. But as the evidence was laid out, documents, emails, and security footage, there was no denying the truth. The room fell into an uneasy silence before Larson finally admitted defeat. "Yes, I did it," Larson said, his voice trembling. "But I did it to protect the company's interests. Aurora would fail if we weren't realistic." Harold Sterling, the chairman of Sterling Innovations and Ryan's father, stood abruptly. His sharp gaze swept across the room before settling on Larson. "You didn't protect anything, Larson. You betrayed the trust of everyone who has poured their lives into this project," he said coldly. "Protecting interests? You did the exact opposite." Larson was promptly taken into custody, and a wave of relief spread through the room. However, the tension remained palpable. As the board members filed out, Harold gestured for Ryan to stay. Alone in the now empty conference room, Harold approached his son, his expression a mix of power and disappointment. "Do you think you've done something great?" Harold's voice was laced with frustration. "You've rejected my deals, cost the company millions. You think getting rid of Larson solves everything?" Ryan clenched his fists, his gaze unwavering. "You were wrong to try and use Aurora for profit. This project is about the future, not your greed." Harold studied his son for a long moment before offering a bitter smile. "The future? Without my funding, your future wouldn't even exist." Ryan took a step forward, facing his father head-on. "If I have to choose between pleasing you and protecting Aurora, I choose Aurora. This company needs a new direction, and I will take it there, with or without you." A tense silence hung between them before Harold sighed, his eyes clouded with a mix of fatigue and disappointment. "You might have won this round, Ryan, but remember, this war isn't over." As Harold walked away, Ryan stood firm, knowing he had made the right decision, for Aurora, for Emma, and for the vision of a better world. Weeks later, as the final turbines were installed and Aurora entered its operational phase, the research facility no longer carried the weight of tension and suspicion. Instead, it became a beacon of innovation and hope. The massive wind turbines spun gracefully against the Arctic sky, generating clean and sustainable energy. International media hailed Aurora as a monumental step forward in the fight against climate change, and the research team was celebrated for their relentless dedication. Ryan knew that the time had come for something even more important, asking Emma to marry him. Under the soft Arctic sunset, he invited Emma to the facility's observation deck, where they could gaze out over the vast frozen sea. Emma stood there, her blue eyes reflecting the gentle golden hues, her heart still racing from the recent events. Pulling a small box from his coat, Ryan's hands trembled slightly from the cold metal.
"Emma," he began, his voice deep and sincere, "I've learned that life isn't just about work and responsibility. Sometimes it's a share it all with, and for me, that person is you. Will you marry me?"
Emma stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise and overflowing with happiness. She couldn't believe that the man who once embodied cold, calculated logic was now standing before her, laying his heart bare. "Ryan," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, I will." Ryan knelt, slipping the ring onto her finger, a small diamond encircled by gold, symbolizing endurance, just like their love. 6 months later, they were married on the very island where everything had begun. The ceremony was a vision of Arctic elegance. White ribbons fluttered in the crisp wind, and delicate snowflakes fell gently, creating a scene straight from a fairy tale. Emma walked down an aisle adorned with white petals, her wedding dress flowing gracefully with lace trimmings as soft as Arctic snow. As she approached Ryan, standing tall and proud, his eyes betrayed the depth of his love for her. "You are the light of my life," Ryan whispered as he took her hand. "From the moment I met you, I knew no one else could stand by my side like you do." Emma smiled radiantly, squeezing his hand. "And you are the wind that carries me beyond my dreams. Together we'll build something better." As the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Ryan leaned in, capturing Emma's lips in a tender kiss, surrounded by cheers and applause from their friends, family, and colleagues. After their wedding, Emma and Ryan didn't stop. They continued collaborating on renewable energy projects worldwide, using their experience at Aurora to advance clean technology even further. Ryan eventually left Sterling Innovations and, with Emma by his side, founded their own company focused on sustainable energy solutions. With his strategic vision and her brilliant expertise, they quickly became a formidable duo in the renewable energy industry. Through all the challenges they faced, they always remembered their time at Aurora, the place that not only sparked groundbreaking innovation, but also forged an unbreakable love. The story ends with Emma and Ryan standing atop the tallest wind turbine at Aurora, looking down at the Arctic landscape that was now thriving with clean energy. "We did it," Emma whispered, her eyes full of hope. Ryan held her hand tightly, a proud smile on his face. "And we're just getting started." Against the vast and serene backdrop, They promise to protect both the world and each other from whatever storms the future might bring. Emma and Ryan's story teaches us that trust and perseverance are the keys to overcoming any challenge. Pursuing one's passion requires not only intelligence, but also the courage to defend one's ideals. True love is built on mutual support and resilience in the face of adversity. Furthermore, innovation and technology can indeed create a sustainable future, but only when we prioritize the greater good over personal profit. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Let us know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. What type of stories would you like to hear next? Don't